Hello guys, what's up? It's me again. I'm back after another long while. I know I don't like to abandon the channel so long, but schools have been keeping me tied up. But anyways, I'm back and I got another topic to talk about. Don't worry, this topic is not really negative. Like the others. Um, I was kind of in a rough time, so yeah. But this new topic will be about facts about ADHD that you might not know, because ADHD is the most self-diagnosed thing in the most self-diagnosed disorder in social media right now, with these social media things, TikTok, and a lot of apps. So, some people might think, most people think ADHD is just a distraction, a distraction quirk. And it's not really that. I mean, it's not just distraction, it has much deeper roots. And it's way more complex than people realize. I mean, it can have a lot of effects, not just on attention span, right? So, as we know, neurotypical people can be just as distracted as a person with ADHD, right? It doesn't matter. You can have a foggy day, you can have many foggy days, and yeah, there's different reasons. I mean, for example, a neurotypical person can be that way because maybe they don't really realize their sleep quality is very low. Maybe they are stressed, right? And many of us today are used to be stressed, right? Dangerously stressed every day. So we just don't really pay attention to it, right? What a I made an unintentional pun right there. But anyways, we might not notice that we are very stressed lately, and yeah, stress might be just like ADHD sometimes. It does feel like that. So, how do I know the difference between a neurotypical distraction quirk, right, and a ADHD distraction? There's different roots in that. The neurotypical reason for having that distraction level, right? We know it's because of either stress or bad sleep quality. They're not eating the right things, right? Because food is also kind of a hard topic nowadays. It's kind of people are not eating good things nowadays. Food slop and all the things going around, right? Too much chips, too much junk food, and that can mess with your brain chemistry. It can affect your brain. Sleeping bad affects you a lot, like really bad. It can mess you up a lot. I mean, people don't really have in mind that. But junk food can also be a problem. And if you have both, yeah, well, expect that from you. Nah, just joking. But really. I mean, yeah, junk food and bad sleep are very common factors for being that distracted and forgetting so much and barely be able to keep attention on something for more than a few seconds. I mean, yeah, it can make you be just like an ADHD person, right? And the other factors are doom scrolling. We know those already. Social media apps, excessive use of social media apps which involve doom scrolling, right? Nighttime revenge, free time. You know that thing. I don't remember the name specifically, but I know it's something with revenge. That also is a factor because people sometimes, young adults mostly, around 25, 30, 27, 28, 29, those people around that age, who have jobs, and responsibilities, they have most of their day busy. So when night comes and they go home, yeah, they want free time. They want the free time they could enjoy in the day. So they go to bed, and instead of sleeping, right, they are with their phones up to 2 p.m. Sorry, I meant 2 a.m. Or maybe 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and so on. I mean, they can be no, they can pull an all-nighter. I mean, and then they feel guilty. So that's the difference. Now, ADHD people can also do the same thing. Like I said, that can happen too. But the reason behind a totally normal and healthy ADHD person can also happen to have those moments as a daily thing, right? Well, it all comes down to the basics. Dopamine, right? We all heard about dopamine, but in a very twisted way, right? So, as you might have seen, there are these videos called dopamine detox. Let's do some dopamine detox. And that's not really a real thing. I mean, you can't detox out of dopamine because, in the first place, dopamine is not a poison, right? It's not something you have to get rid of. I mean, anyone can be bored and by staring at a wall for, I don't know, 30 minutes a day because a video of dopamine detox said so. Yeah, well, right. Anyone can get bored because your brain is starved of stimulation. Your brain needs constant info. It needs to do something, think about something, do something, right? See something, hear something. When those things aren't present, there's nothing. So your brain kind of panics, right? Your brain needs stimulation, and that's why we get bored. Now, what some of these videos say, they do say getting bored is healthy. Yes, that is true. Getting bored sometimes is good because it spikes creativity. Yes, that is true. But the catch is when you do it trying to get rid of dopamine. And but that's not a real thing. You can't get rid of it. You need it to live, actually. People don't know that they are alive thanks to dopamine. Now, pleasure, right, in any of its forms, right? We know so many forms of pleasure: liking something, doing love, making love, yeah, all the forms of pleasure you can get out of anything. The main thing that makes you feel pleasure is just endorphins. I mean, endorphins are the things that make you feel pressure. I mean, the main thing that makes you want to do those things is dopamine. When you do it and feel good, when you feel pleasure, right, while doing something, yes, those are endorphins. Now, your brain can get addicted to endorphins, right? That's very easy. It can happen very easily, right? Because endorphins signal safety, they signal good. They are the basic good sign. This is good that your brain has, right? So dopamine is different. Is That's not its main function. It's not a feel good hormone like people say. The things that make you feel pressure, they spike endorphins in your brain and you feel good. Now, dopamine is a messenger, right? It carries a message from one neuron to the other, right? That's the main function. Now, depression is what I would like to call the blueprint for what happens when dopamine isn't doing its job, right? When dopamine is not showing up, when dopamine is not there as much as it should be. Now, extreme depression, right? Not functional depression, because yeah, that kind of, there's still a little level of dopamine that makes them be able to do some stuff, right? But dysfunctional dopamine, when the person can no longer do things like their chores and basic needs for themselves, right? Attending to themselves, showering, brushing their teeth, eating, drinking, right? Attending to their basic needs. When a person with extreme depression no longer does that, they just don't want to get out of bed. They cannot get out of bed. They know they have things to do, they know they have things to attend to, but getting out of bed is physically exhausting even if they haven't lain there all day. You see, that is what happens when no dopamine is showing up. If you were to be able to get rid of dopamine, you will just be a severely depressed person with no drive to eat, no drive to drink and stay hydrated, no drive to get out of bed and take a shower, right? No drive to do your chores, and so on. So, dopamine is it's completely necessary to live. You can't live without it. And we tend to demonize dopamine, and it's not right. That's not right, guys. You see, in the case of dopamine, there is a little difference between what happens in a person with depression and another person with ADHD. So, in the case of the person with ADHD, dopamine is present, right? They can get out of bed, they can get to do their chores, go to their job, complete their responsibilities. Now, where's the catch? The catch is that a neurotypical person can do it with a certain level of struggle, right? Of difficulty. But the level of difficulty a person with ADHD has is three times that of a neurotypical person. They have to push three times harder than a normal person does. I mean, not really three times, but it's a expression to say and describe how hard it can be. So it is harder to get to work, right? To get to do things. It's a little bit harder than normal, but it is still possible. You can function normally. You have the drive to eat, the urge to eat, right? You know you have to, and you can do it, right? You are functional. So the catch is, it can be two things. You have a normal amount of dopamine receptors, right? It's a normal amount. But when dopamine gets in to do their job, your brain can absorb it too quickly. So the message can be carried, because that's the main use of dopamine. Dopamine is there just to give a message, For example, it's time to take a shower, it's getting late, we need to go to work, right? We need to go now, right now, and we need to do something. So the dopamine that is trying to get that message, get heard, the brain absorbs it too quickly. So the message doesn't really go all the way. It's like it can pierce through. So you have to do something, right? It can be anything. You have to shower. You have to go to work early because it's getting late. You have to be at work on time, right? Silly examples. And you know it, but you can't do it. You don't do it. You stay there sitting like a mannequin, right? And you only do it when it's getting late already, right? When it's no longer uh, a situation where you can say, okay, I'll do it now. And you can get on time, pretend nothing happened, right? It's only when it gets bad that you act, because when it gets bad, adrenaline comes in, and adrenaline is something different. It's not the same to pushing the gas gently on a car than slamming it shut, right? Slamming it all the way down, flooring it. So yeah, dopamine is not doing their job correctly. So adrenaline is like the wake up, call, like the do it now signal, right? So now your brain obeys, and now you are hurrying up, dressing up quickly. I say, I need to go now. It's getting so late. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get fired. My boss will yell at me so much. My boss is going to kill me, right? And you say, why am I doing this? Why do I do that? I could have just gone early, right? I could have just get ready in time and go normally like a normal person. But yeah, there's a process between knowing what you have to do, right, and doing it. Most people assume that knowing what you have to do automatically makes you do it, and that's not true. I mean, you can know you have to do a lot of things, but you might not as well do it. And that's because the process, right? There is a mental process which is here in the prefrontal cortex, which needs to take care of organizing, the knowing I have to do something and making it I do something, right? You don't just have it stuck in your head. You go and do it, right? For example, I have to go to work. Two, I am going to work right now. And that process gets a little bit delayed in ADHD. It's not done correctly. So the brain actually tries to compensate for that, It doesn't just sit there with a low baseline, right? Because, like I said, it can be two things. The number one thing is a normal amount of receptors, right? Dopamine receptors. But dopamine gets absorbed too quickly and can't do its job completely. The second reason is dopamine is not absorbed quickly, but you have a very low amount of receptors, dopamine receptors. So your brain gets the dopamine levels it needs, right? You are not in a dopamine deficiency. You have dopamine and you have the level you need, but your tank is leaking. Your tank is leaking and gasoline is pouring out. So, in the no, in the reason number one, yeah, it happens that way. and the reason number two, it happens that way. Both are different, but the outcome is pretty much the same. I mean, there's not really a difference, it's just a different origin, but the outcome is the same. Both are forms of ADHD, and you can have any of the two. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's the only thing that changes is that if you have reason number one, you get a medication for that type. And if you have reason number two, you get a medication specifically made for that reason. But the outcome is the same. You have the same way of having ADHD. Both are the same, right? And both can be just as bad as the other because it's the same thing, just wearing a different mask, right? So, is there any other fact? Yeah, it also affects the way you move. And yes, it happens. Yeah, people don't really have it in mind, but the way you move, the way you walk, the way you avoid getting, crashing into things, that's all made by the cerebellum, right? The cerebellum, the mini brain, under your cerebral cortex, right? That cerebellum is the one in charge of movement. Now, what happens with ADHD? And this doesn't happen to a neurotypical person. This is a unique ADHD thing, right? Like I said, both can get very distracted. Both types can get very distracted, just the same. But the reason underneath that distraction is very different. One is stress and sleep deprived. The other can be also, but the main reason is that, I mean, they have not enough dopamine circulating. It is present, but it is not circulating in the neurons actively. So, how does it affect the cerebellum? It affects by making it inefficient. I mean, like I said, your brain consists of neurons, right? Neurons are what makes the brain be a brain. And the cerebellum is also affected. It's not an exception, and it affects in ways that are very subtle. I mean, you don't really notice any difference in how you move if you have or not ADHD. You only notice, and it's a symptom. Sometimes it's a symptom, right? When you have something in front of you, like a wall, right? And or maybe a chair, right? And instead of moving aside and walking around the object, right? You move aside and simply walk by, right? Instead of that, you kind of swing your hips and do this, right? You kind of just do this. And that's not really a normal way of evading, things. You kind of just, your body stays in place and your hips just do to the side, and then you move your body to the side, right? So that is a difference, and that is how you kind probably, notice that there's something kind of strange. And I have to admit, I used to do that, and I do it now too. I always notice, and I am self-aware that I do evade things that way. Wall chairs. I always just swing my hips to the side, and then I move. It's like I just do, and then my body just right, like like a separate bricks, right? Instead of just moving around. Now, why does that happen? There is a reason. Because the cerebellum is not left to completely do its job, because the cerebellum is tinier than the cerebral cortex above it, but it has more concentration of neurons than the entire cerebral cortex. I mean, people don't notice, but don't really know, but the cerebellum is the place with most neurons out of your entire brain. Like, moving your body is so complex that your brain had to concentrate all of its power there, down there, in the way you move, right? The engine that makes you move. So to compensate for the low fuel, right? It tries to give a few quick solutions, right? That aren't really as complex as moving entirely around the object. Instead, it makes a quick fix. Swing your hips to the side, and then your body follows naturally as you move, right? Instead of coordinating, stopping your feet, then moving your feet in another direction, then moving your entire body and coordinating all the steps needed, right? Because it does that. Under the hood, it does that. So instead of doing that, which takes a lot of processing power, right? It makes a quick fix and done, because it needs to compensate for being clumsy. Because ADHD people are clumsy. You might have noticed that people with ADHD often have butter hands, and the things they grab often fall to the floor, and they can fall to the floor easily, right? They're easy to trip over themselves even with no untied shoes and no on regular pavement, right? They can just trip over their own feet because the coordination in their body is not fully there, so they are clumsy. So their nervous system tries to compensate for that same clumsiness, right? That is a unique thing in ADHD. Another fact, right? So the third and final fact that I have known up to this day is that well, it affects how you process emotions, right? It can make even as an adult with a fully developed brain, a fully developed prefrontal cortex, which is the part that takes the longest to fully mature, right? Even having a fully mature prefrontal cortex, it takes much longer than 25 years, right? A neurotypical person has 25 years, right, until that part is fully wired. But ADHD can delay the process up to 3 years, I think. 3 years, if not even more. It's not like you will be 50 years old and you will not have a developed brain. Yes, you will eventually have it fully developed, but the way that brain is going to function, even fully developed and wired, is different. Uh, People with ADHD tend to be way more sensitive, and that's because the passage, the link between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex is not fully, myelinated, is not fully constructed right. So even if your prefrontal cortex can develop completely and be just as good, right? The amygdala is not fully wired with that, right? That part is kind of missing. It's not fully complete. So your prefrontal cortex can be fully developed, right? All functional, but the amygdala is not holding on too tight to the prefrontal cortex, right? The neurons that go that way are not fully myelinated. So yeah, the process between feeling something and controlling the emotion, they are not as reliable. So they can be very reactive. It's not a thing they choose, right? It just happens, right? And it can happen to anyone. That is also not a unique ADHD thing. Bipolar disorders can also make people reactive. Depression can sometimes even make people reactive too. Sleep deprivation can also make people reactive. See, that's not a unique thing in ADHD. It's, like I said, just a symptom and an outcome, not a sign, right, that you have ADHD, because many people can have those. The only exception I will say, right, that is ADHD only and ADHD exclusive will be the cerebellum fact, right? That is a unique thing among the ADHD type. So, yeah, those are the three facts for today. If you want more facts, you can ask me to give you more. And I'll discuss um, dopamine maybe in another video a little bit further. You just ask me what you would like to see in the next video, and I will read your comments as soon as I get to that, right? As soon as they get into my notifications, I will try to be as quick as possible to read them. And yeah, guys, that's all for today's video. I hope you liked this new topic I talked about, and I hope it was of your liking. If you want more, just tell me, right? And I'll be happy to listen. So, goodbye. See you later.